In the Herzl 100, I am posting 100 Herzl artifacts in 100 days on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out hashtag Herzl100. Or for more information about Herzl, check out my website, www.herzlcollection.com. These are items 59 to 50 in the Herzl 100 as we count down to number 1. So, welcome to the 50s. What I am holding is a hand drawing of the ceremony at which David Ben-Gurion read Israel's Declaration of Independence on May 14, 1948. And this is a drawing signed by Otto Wallisch. Otto Wallisch is the gentleman who was hired on May 13, 1948, the day before the Declaration, to design this ceremony. Wallisch was a graphic designer. He made posters for businesses. He also designed stamps, including Israel's first stamps, the Doer Ivri stamps, Hebrew post stamps. And the image that he wanted of this Declaration of Independence ceremony was David Ben-Gurion reading the Declaration of Independence under a portrait of Theodor Herzl. And this connected the dream and vision with its realization. And in fact, in the Knesset, the parliament chamber of the State of Israel, Theodor Herzl's image is also there. He's the only person who is portrayed on the wall of the parliamentary chamber. Now, this was clearly the fulfillment of Herzl's dream, but Herzl's dream is not yet completed because he envisioned a state of Israel living in peace as a moral society. And the idea of a moral society is an ongoing effort. We can always do things better. We can always be fairer, more equal, have greater rights. And this is the ongoing job of Zionism that Herzl envisioned, to make Israel safe and secure, as envisioned by David Ben-Gurion when he read the Declaration of Independence, and as envisioned by Herzl, under whose picture the Declaration of Independence was read. What I'm holding is volume 1 of a German printing of Herzl's diary that was made in 1922. There are 3 volumes of Herzl's diary, so it's maybe this thick. And one of the reasons we know so much about Herzl is because he kept a daily diary of his activities throughout his entire Zionist work. And what's interesting about this particular volume is this was clearly plundered from either a Jewish library, an organization during the Second World War. And we know that because we see there's a stamp here from the Offenbach Archival Depot. That was the United States Army was trying to collect all the books that were stolen and return them somehow to Jewish communities and individuals. And this particular stamp on the front inside cover of the book from the Jewish Cultural Reconstruction, which was involved in repatriating Jewish books after the Second World War. And perhaps this book is a bit of a metaphor. Books that were stolen were returned to Jewish owners. And in a similar fashion, the land of Israel, which was taken away from the Jewish people with the Roman conquest of 70 AD, Herzl's vision was for it to be returned to the Jewish people, and that's what happened in 1948. The way Herzl envisioned it was that it was, yes, for the Jewish people to reestablish their sovereignty in their homeland, but to give the Jewish people the right to safety and security in our ancestral land, the same right that other people have. So this book went on a bit of a trip. It has now been returned into Jewish hands, and the state of Israel is in Jewish hands, but the trick is to figure out how it can live in peace with its neighbors. What I'm holding is a most unusual Herzl-related philatelic item, something in the field of stamp collecting. This was a stamp issued by Venezuela In 1998, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the State of Israel, there's Herzl and then David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister. Of course, after the stamp was issued, relations between Israel and Israel became a bit difficult. I'm not saying it's because of the stamp, of course. But what this shows us is that sometimes friends can become enemies. But the reverse is also true. Enemies can become friends. So Israel has entered peace agreements with Egypt, with Jordan. There's the Abraham Accords, and there's hopefully discussions to expand the Abraham Accords to other countries. Obviously, we've gone through a difficult time. The world, Jews, the people of Israel, with the various wars with the neighbors, and also with Iran. And when I say the neighbors, terrorist groups who have infiltrated Lebanon and Gaza. There is no shortage of issues. But Herzl teaches us that tomorrow can be better than today. We are not saddled with the current situation. We can dream about a better future and make it better. So although things soured with Venezuela after this stamp was issued, maybe they'll sweeten again. Things can change, and we can't give up hope that things can change for the better. What I am holding is Theodor Herzl's business card. It says he's a correspondent of the Neue Freie Presse, which was a prominent Viennese newspaper, and he was the Paris correspondent for this paper in the late 1800s. He covered in that capacity the Dreyfus trial, which was in 1894 and early 1895. And Dreyfus was a Jewish officer in the French army who was wrongfully accused and then convicted of treason. And in covering the trial, Herzl heard cries of death to the Jews, and the issue of anti-Semitism, which percolated below the surface of Parisian society, bubbled up to the top. And that got Herzl alarmed, because he concluded that if the Jewish people are not safe in France, of all places, they are not safe anywhere. After covering the trial, he sequestered himself in his hotel room at the Hotel Castile, and he wrote what became the Jewish State. Herzl decided that anti-Semitism was a massive issue for the Jewish people in Europe, that the ground was burning underneath their feet, that they were in danger. And instead of whining about it and fetching about it and wishing someone would do something about it, Herzl decided, me, a journalist for the newspaper, a playwright, someone with legal training, I will try and solve the issue. And what he did was he wrote The Jewish State, Medinat HaYehudim, the Judenstaat, which came out in February of 1896. And from that moment on, Herzl dedicated the remainder of his life, unfortunately a short 8 years, to try and solve anti-Semitism for all time. His solution became the State of Israel. Now, we know that didn't solve anti-Semitism. We know there's work still to be done. But one person with an idea, with the guts, with the brains to try and change it, made a difference for all Jewish people, and I dare say, for the world. What I'm holding is a collection of the work of the artist E.M. Lillian. E.M. Lillian took this photograph of Herzl at the Fifth Zionist Congress in Basel in 1901. He is standing on the balcony of the Three Kings Hotel, looking out into the future. And this is a very old postcard because you can tell there's no split line on the back, which means that it's before 1906. There was an international convention in 1906 that provided that you could split the back of a postcard. Now, E.M. Lillian was an artist, a drawing artist, and in 1908, he drew a Bible, and he portrayed Herzl in all of the major roles. This is Herzl in the Garden of Eden. This is Herzl as Jacob wrestling with the angel. This is Herzl as Moses. This is Herzl as Aaron, Moses' brother. This is Herzl as Joshua, Moses' successor. So at least to E.M. Lillian, Herzl was a character of biblical import, of biblical proportions, and that's why he portrayed him in all the biblical roles. It's just another indication of the importance of Herzl to the Jewish people and how he was reflected so many different ways. What I'm holding is a very special edition of Herzl's 1902 novel, Altneuland, Old New Land, which we saw already as number 71 of the Herzl 100. But this particular edition is very special. It's quite thick because it includes this book in 5 languages: Hebrew, Arabic, English, Russian, and Amharic. And it was issued by the Noar Hoved Vilomed, the Working and Studying Youth, which is an Israeli youth movement which is comprised of Jews, Arabs, and Druze, and they believe in human decency, social justice, Zionism, democracy, and peace. This is a group of Israeli youth who are trying to fulfill Herzl's vision of coexistence, of people living together, of the Jewish state inuring to the benefit of all of its residents and everyone in the region and frankly around the world. So we can learn from these young people, the working and studying youth, that peace, coexistence, working together is possible. Altneuland was Herzl's utopian novel about a better future, of a new society, of equality, of democracy, of technology, of liberal views and progressive views, free education, free medical care, and a jubilee year where real estate was returned to the society for reallocation. So that's why Altneuland appears twice. It is so important. It's in the Herzl 100 2 times. What I'm holding is a unique one-of-one item, the songbook from Camp Herzl in Webster, Wisconsin from 1965. It is a one-of-one because it's autographed by campers and staff members who were in the 3rd session, the 3rd Aliyah at camp in 1965. And this book contains Zionist classic songs such as Eitz Harimon, the pomegranate tree, Anu Banu Arza, we have come to our land to build and to be rebuilt through it. These are classic pioneer songs. And then, of course, there's Chatul Ganav, the thieving cat, and its lyrics are really beautiful. There was once a thieving cat who fell into a can of milk. From then on, they called him Milky, and he has remained white ever since. And of course, my favorite, David Melech Yisrael, David, the King of Israel. Herzl Camp, founded in 1946, is among many schools, camps, clubs, organizations that were named after Herzl to keep his dream alive before 1948, to realize a vision of the Jewish state living safely and freely in the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, and doing so in a way that was peaceful. Now, the idea of it being peaceful was part of Herzl's vision. That part hasn't yet been realized. And so hopefully at Camp Herzl in Webster, Wisconsin, campers now continue to sing songs of peace. Let's sing, let's work, let's strive for the state of Israel living in peace with its neighbors, with a fair and equal society for all of its inhabitants. That's what Herzl envisioned. What I'm holding is a warrant certificate issued in 1901, which enabled the holder to purchase 1 share of the Jewish Colonial Trust. This was a Zionist bank founded at the Second Zionist Congress in 1898 and formed in 1899. It was the idea of Theodor Herzl, who envisioned that in order to make the dream of a Jewish state a reality, it needed a fiscal system, it needed an economy, it needed to purchase land, it needed to develop cities. And that's what this Zionist bank was created to do. It sold shares around the world to tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And this was the first way for people to tangibly show their support for Herzl's dream. It was created several years before the Jewish National Fund. And this particular organization created a subsidiary called the Anglo-Palestine Bank. The Anglo-Palestine Bank had branches, it took deposits, and some of the things it did was purchase the land that became the city of Tel Aviv, as well as a significant swath of land in Haifa. Land indeed was purchased as part of the Zionist movement. Now, the Anglo-Palestine Bank became essentially the central bank of Israel when the country was created. The first banknotes of Israel were issued by the Anglo-Palestine Bank. It then changed its name to the Bank Leumi. The Bank Leumi, one of Israel's largest banks, of international prominent bank, is a successor to the Jewish Colonial Trust, which was the idea of Herzl and was founded in 1898. What I'm holding are two important specimens of Israeli banknotes. The first one is what I mentioned in number 52. The first banknotes, the first currency issued by the newly created State of Israel in 1948 was issued by the Anglo-Palestine Bank. This was a subsidiary of the company that Herzl created at the Second Zionist Congress in 1898. In 1968, this large banknote with a likeness of Herzl was issued. And on the back of it, you will see the symbols of the 7 tribes, ancient tribes of Israel, and in the middle, the state symbol, which is the 7-branched candelabra, and beside it are olive branches, and the olive branches is the international symbol of the aspiration for peace. And we know what this candelabra looks like because it was depicted on the Arch of Titus, which is in Rome, when the Romans had plundered the temple, the ancient holy temple in Jerusalem, and took the bounty back to Rome. So you can see here connections, historical connections between ancient Israel and the new modern state. Also of interest on this banknote is that the Bank of Israel is written in English, in Hebrew, and in Arabic. So what has been created in Israel is a new state on the Jewish people's ancestral homeland. Modern, but respecting the past, and something that Herzl envisioned in his book, The Jewish State, and was the aspiration of the Zionist movement until the state was actually proclaimed on May 14th, 1948. What I'm holding is spectacular and unique. It's a one of one. It's a collection of envelopes addressed to Theodor Herzl at the various places that he lived and worked over an almost 20-year period, starting in 1885. Herzl died in 1904. Here's an envelope addressed to Herzl in Vienna. This one is addressed to Herzl in London. This particular one is fascinating. It's initially addressed to him in Schwenningen, Holland, but was redirected to the Hotel Castile in Paris. It was in the Hotel Castile that Herzl wrote the Jewish State, the Judenstaat, which was published in 1896. In fact, on Rue Gambon, facing the street, outside the hotel, there's a plaque that says, in this building, Herzl wrote the Jewish State. And you can see so many letters in various places. And of course, these aren't all of the letters that Herzl received. He corresponded He corresponded diligently to people around the world, and got a lot of inbound letters and letters from his employer, the Neue Freie Press, from Zionists around the world, all addressed to Herzl in various places, goes on and on. Herzl was very diligent in his work. He became consumed with the idea of saving the Jewish people and creating a better future for us, for them, free of anti-Semitism. And this beautiful collection of envelopes is just one slice of the amount of effort and work that went into Herzl's dream. He worked so hard, frankly, he worked himself to death. He was told by his doctors, slow down, you're a sickly person. And he said, I don't have time. I have to keep going. I have to work quickly and hard. And frankly, he worked himself to death for the benefit of the Jewish people and the future state of Israel. And that's why, I don't know, there may be 40 here, but I count them as one, as part of the Herzl 100.